Welcome everybody to the Personal Health Summit 2015. Super excited to have the amazing John Gray with us today here for a conversation about relationships and no doubt many other things about health and happiness. So just wanted to start by setting the scene. Our intention for this summit is 100% for you to be gathering a lot of information about certain areas of health, whether it's nutrition, exercise, sleep, happiness, consciousness, and all of the above and everything in between, to really find out what is right for you, where you're at your point in your journey, and what can be done or how you can move to transition into a further place of health and happiness. So a huge thank you to our major sponsors, the Ultimate Human Foundation, for their work eliminating chronic pain and disease from the planet, an amazing international collaboration of a lot of leading doctors and scientists and specialists and health ambassadors all around the world. And a huge thank you to PH360, who's really working to apply this personalized health information and the concept of epigenetics in a very tangible way so that people can find out what's right for them in terms of the foods and exercise, even the social interactions, the natural talents and the way their mind works. And that really is a great set of the scene today for relationships and how they can influence our health. Also like to say the biggest thank you to you for giving up your time, investing your time to be here to learn more about what these amazing experts from all over the world have to share. We have 30 of the world's best experts on this summit over the next 2 weeks, and we're really excited to bring this information to you in the comfort of their own home. So thank you so much for those listening live and for those watching the replay. We're really excited to give so much information to you and deliver that today. So without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce Dr. John Gray with us here today. Now, John is the leading relationship expert in the world, I should say. His relationship and health books have sold over 50 million copies in 50 different languages. His groundbreaking book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I'm sure every single person on the planet has heard about that, no matter which planet you're on. The best-selling non-fiction book of all time. It really launched it, and it's launched his Mars Venus book series that forever changed the way men and women view their relationships. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure, and getting to know you at other times has been a pleasure as well with Personal Health 360.
Thanks, John. We'd love to welcome you today, and I'd love to hear a little bit about you to start with, and how you got to where you are today, and the journey that you've been on. There's a lot of listeners, sitting here at this particular point in time, who've been in very different circumstances. They may be in troubled relationships, they may be in fantastic relationships, they may be suffering from poor health or in thriving health. John, tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today. I'd love to just delve into that to start with.
Well, it's interesting. I have a unique perspective on relationships, because I started out in my 20s as a monk, a celibate monk. And I was very active as a teenager, but then I became celibate in my 20s when I became the personal assistant to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who back in the 70s and the 60s had brought transcendental meditation to the West and really popularized a lot of Eastern thought, and took it out of the realm of religion and more in terms of a practical technique to meditate in order to reduce stress. And that became the foundation of knowing myself and finding an inner source of happiness that had reached its peak and could only go to a higher level through relationship, through love. One thing is a kind of a spacious enlightenment where you're one with the universe and you experience a oneness with everyone. But that then moves you into an open heart. And to sustain your positive feelings in relationship with someone, that's the real challenge. That's the real path of enlightenment. And because I had a foundation of finding an inner peace, an inner center, a greater awareness, when issues came up with my wife, I was able to hear her in a non-judgmental way, but also hear myself in a non-judgmental way. And from there, I was able to develop many of the ideas of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which I think if people could summarize what that's about, it's a positive and easy way to understand the common differences that show up between men and women in a non-judgmental way, but an empathetic, a compassionate way. And when you have that insight, it's easier to make choices and decisions that can make your relationship work better rather than unknowingly sabotage your relationship. So that's sort of a summary of my journey.
That's beautiful, John, and a great way to sort of set the scene for this conversation. And I guess one of the big things and the reasons behind this summit is to really help people understand, no matter where they're at in their situations, how they can really harness some of the new concepts and principles that people are sharing out there with them to be moving towards that better space. And John, have you got some understandings for us so that you can share about just what what you just mentioned about the perspective there, that the difference between a space where we misunderstand people sometimes, and relationships, we can often think about the fact that, everybody's like us. And this is something that we talk about quite a lot, is that, we think everybody thinks like us, and we think everybody sees the world like us. And so we approach everything in that manner. And so if we have high expectations and people aren't, delivering to those expectations, we may be frustrated or intolerant. Or if we're someone who's very, very cruisy and relaxed and goes about their day with not much stress, and there's other people who are very highly strung, that may be, stressful for them. So there's just such an interesting time when we're learning a lot more about our brain and about our minds and about how we relate to each other from an energetic perspective, from a physical perspective. Can you share some insights about just the whole perception of who we are and how we perceive other people, and how that can actually influence us in a very positive way with our relationships?
Well, I think the key word that you just said, and all that you said was very beautiful, is we misunderstand each other. And there's a lot more message underneath misunderstanding. Actually, all conflict is not really hearing another person's point of view. We give a message and we assume that our message was received, but something else was received. We give love and we assume that someone should receive that love as we think, as the value we put on it. For example, a woman might be upset, and or a situation, let's say I get upset. My tendency when I'm upset is I want to be alone. Just ignore me, leave me alone. And lots of men are that way. It tends to be a common gender difference, not always, but common gender difference. And so I like to be alone. So if my wife's upset, I think I'm giving her a gift by just ignoring her. I might say, I'll just go for a drive or to the movies. And she's like, what? You're leaving me at a time like this? And so it was learning that she had different needs. And if I wanted to follow what I think all of us, whether we're spiritual, religious or not, like the idea of the golden rule, which is give unto others what you would want. And, the intent is really what we need to give a loving intent to the other, but to find out what love looks like for that person, because it might look different for them than it looks for ourselves. And so understanding our differences in a positive way helps us to give the kind of support our partner wants instead of what we necessarily think they should want. Also, you mentioned something, I loved what you said about maybe lowering our expectations. Well, it may seem like we're lowering our expectations, but really, and I know this is what you meant, we're just correcting our expectations. If I expect my wife to interact with life the way I do, and she doesn't, then it would seem like I'm having to lower my expectations. But actually, from her point of view, if I live my life different from the way she lives it, she has to lower hers. So it's not really lowering expectations. It seems like we're like missing out on life. The truth is, differences, when they're harmonious and we can come together with love and enhance who we are, they complement who we are. They bring out the best in us. And, from my side as a kind of a very sort of, well, I was a yogi for 9 years and very meditative, very spacious. I can just meditate and disappear. And that's a good skill for lowering stress. But unless you're connecting and giving of yourself to someone and feeling their love, feeling their happiness, feeling their sorrow, feeling their reactions, if you don't have that connection, it becomes kind of a black and white world. It's the emptiness basically, and you want to fill it up. And what fills it up is love and connection and emotion. So that became a big journey for me. And what I see again and again in relationships, if we don't understand how our partner might react to things differently than we do, and it's normal. And if we don't understand that they have a way of processing it that could be different from us, then we can get in the way of that. And that's what I see happening so much in relationships, is we unknowingly sabotage our relationships. And the emphasis there is on unknowingly. We think we're doing like the right thing. That's why we get so frustrated. Why are we arguing? Why are we battling? What's going on here? I put my best out. It wasn't good enough. And it's just really, we don't understand the little things that can make a huge difference. And I think that's why my work has been so well received. It really is about understanding rather than having to change yourself. If I was to say to you, you're always going out this door, which is about 30 yards, but there's a door right behind you, which is 2 yards. Now you're going to change and go to the short door. You're going to have a more efficient way of getting out or getting in, whatever it might be. But you didn't have to change yourself. It was an easy choice. It was an easy decision. And when men understand how women are different, women understand how men are commonly different, then it's easy little choices to make instead of, you know, trying to change who you are and suppressing yourself. And, you know, that's where it's hard if you try to tell people to change. But if you give people new insight, that's kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that, then positive change can happen pretty quickly.
That's beautiful words, John. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. And
let me just, one thing before we move on is the context of your summit is wellness and happiness. And the most important factor for wellness, and I'm all into nutrition and health and exercise and cleansing, all that stuff's really important. I hope we get a chance to talk about that. But the most important thing is love. And it's like, this is so key that we feel our heart is open and someone loves us, others love us, and we love them. We can connect with them. And even more powerful is intimate relationship where you can be naked with someone and they can love you. See, I can put on fancy clothes and be in a fancy car or stand on stage with a lot of diplomas. You're going to love me, admire me, respect me, appreciate me. Yes, but I've got all these things that you're loving as well. But when you can be naked with someone, meaning that you're vulnerable, you're open, they see you every day, and they love you, that is the biggest stress reducer in the world. It's also can be the biggest stress increaser in your life when you don't have that. To open yourself up and be rejected can cause massive stress, but to open yourself up with good communication skills and feel loved and supported, that can be your biggest stress reducer. And we know that it's the chronic stress which is behind a lot of these chronic diseases we see today.
That's it's beautiful, John. Thanks for that that clarification. I'd love to, and for those listening at home, there's enough love here. We are going to keep clothes on. We don't need to get into that space just for today. But John, I'd love to go back to what you said as an example earlier, where it may be just offering some new insights or some new information for people. You know, there may be a door that's 30 feet away that I might always go through, but you're able to help me understand there's a door just behind me that's very easy to go through. And this is such a great conversation. We've already got a lot of different comments and questions coming through. Often, you know, we may take it on board for us. Let's say, you know, this exact situation that you might say, hey, Matt, there's a door behind you. It's so much easier. You should just go through that. And maybe there is a door that's easier. Maybe there is a door that's closer. But the door that's closer and easier is maybe your opinion or your thoughts or your beliefs that the door is closer and easier. Maybe I want to go through that door that's further away, or maybe I believe that that door is more appropriate for me that's 30 feet away. And so there's no right or wrong. It's not that you're right that there's a door closer, or I'm right that there's a door further away. It's about understanding more about, you know, the beliefs that we have, the perceptions we have of different things, but understanding that we're all different at our different levels of beliefs. We're all different at how we perceive the world. We're all different of how we're made up physiologically and how we actually understand a lot of the circumstances. But the key that brings us all together is love and is happiness and is gratitude and all the things you mentioned. I think that I just wanted to highlight that distinction that you mentioned there, because it's so powerful to understand that we're all very, very different. We always are all going to see very, very different things in the world. Yet what can bring us together and bring very different people together is love and happiness and gratitude and peace. And so thank you for sharing those beautiful words, John. I just want to sort of highlight the importance of that for those listening at home right now, because that in itself, if nothing else from this call, is just such a powerful message. So thank you for sharing that.
Let me give an example. As a man, we often, and this is from years and years of listening to men talk about their challenges in relationships. And often when a man wants to get a divorce, that means the challenge has increased and increased, and he just can't solve the problem and he's going to give up. A lot of men, they still love their partners. They just say, you know, I love her, but no matter what I do, it's never enough to make her happy. Okay, so this is like a major, major thing. And I have to say, I don't hear that much from women. There's a few cases, but women will often say, I give and give and give, but I don't get back. And this is a completely different dynamic. The man's basically saying, I give and give, and it doesn't work. And a woman says, I give and give, but nothing's coming back to me. He's real happy, but I'm not. So there's a real male yin-yang, male-female yin-yang dynamic here that's going on. So as a guy, I see a lot of guys, and they're frustrated because they feel like their wives aren't happy, and their wives will have a list of complaints, and he'll just go, well, those aren't that important. And I say, well, wait a second. You think they're not important. You think the important things are you make money, you work hard, you've got insurance, you've got a house, and those are important things. They're often, you know, the first requirements a woman might have to be in a relationship with you. And they go, yeah, I'm a good guy, you know, I'm like up in the 10% here. And you go, okay, well, that got you in the door. But what allows a woman to experience happiness in her relationship, there's a hormonal foundation for it. And that hormonal foundation is a biological foundation in all women. It certainly has a variation in the scale, but it's the hormone estrogen. When women have higher estrogen, and when you take estrogen and the hormone oxytocin, which is if I'm being affectionate with my wife, if I'm holding her hand, if I'm planning a date, if I bring her roses, if I listen to her, if I empathize with her, if she can share with me, if she feels I'm noticing her, if she feels I'm helping her, all of those interactions for her will increase oxytocin. Now, when she's doing those things for me, it will increase oxytocin. Oxytocin is a nurturing hormone. The difference is that high oxytocin levels lower a woman's stress if she has plenty of estrogen. For a man, high oxytocin levels will make him sleepy. Mm-hmm. There's a real difference, and you can measure this difference. So men don't instinctively understand the importance of oxytocin because the research is revealing now for us that oxytocin, this hormone that gets produced with affection, is the hormone that makes women feel really good. It helps lower cortisol levels in women. It helps balance hormones in women. It's very, very important. For men, it feels good, but it doesn't regulate our stress. Oxytocin doesn't lower a man's stress, and high amounts of oxytocin and estrogen will actually lower his testosterone. And if it goes too low, a typical symptom for men of low testosterone is grumpy, irritable, passive, and moody. So we really have these different hormonal balances that are very significantly different. For women, it's constantly a balancing of estrogen, progesterone, oxytocin, key players for her. For men, it's primarily about testosterone and testosterone and testosterone. If testosterone's healthy, he feels good. If testosterone goes down and his estrogen goes high, he feels moody, irritable, whiny, complaining. So these are real differences of behaviors, personality experiences when our hormones go out of balance. So the point being there, and this is all leading up to one of those little 3-foot things, something that most men don't know, is that if you focus on doing little things for a woman, expressions of affection, warmth, and love, those expressions have the same impact as big expressions of love. For example, I might bring 24 roses to my wife, and you go, oh, that's a big surge of oxytocin. Her face glows. She goes, oh, how beautiful. I love them. They're wonderful. Let's put them here. And she's just glowing. Well, that's oxytocin glow. But you can bring her one rose and she'll have the same glow. This is what men can learn from that. So it's not bigger is better for most women. It's lots of little and occasionally big. Okay. It's not that big doesn't mean anything, but the key to it is lots of little expressions of love and affection. And to turn that around, the key for men is your responses to him. So men generally, when they say, no matter what I do, it's never enough to make her happy. What it means is I do things and she's unhappy. I do things and she complains about what I do. I do things and there's always something more she wants. It's never enough to satisfy her, because what men are looking for most is to get a message from her that she appreciates him, that she delights in him, that he's providing for her what will make her happier. Now, having said that, that's just understanding that. So what I did as a man, knowing that, is I realized, okay, I need to give lots of attention, lots of little expressions of love. I say to my wife every day, I find a moment, I go, touch her, and I go, I love you. I give her 4 hugs a day at a minimum. If I'm leaving, I say, I'm going here, let me give you a hug. And you might think, why? Because it's a little moment to connect. And what I know is it feels good to me, but it also feels really good to her, because it increases this hormone that helps her come back into her body and out of her head, helps her lower her stress. And oh my gosh, what an insight. One little insight can change everything.
That's amazing, John. And I really I really love how you bring in a lot of the new sciences that we're understanding and bring it into such a tangible and practical way. So I'm hoping that all the men on the call and those listening to the replays are taking notes wildly. I think the formula, John, was 1 rose a day and 24 roses once a month or once a fortnight, something like that.
Anniversaries. You get the big, you know, what I will do, my wife does make a big thing out of it, but when I dated her, I would get a gardenia. So on anniversaries, I do bring a box of gardenias. They're not that expensive, and put them all around the house and float them around and so forth, and light some candles. It's those little things that really sparkle, but you can't do that every day, but you can do the little things every day. And that's the key to that's the takeaway from this. And most men just don't realize how important that is, because it's not as biologically important for us. We can like it or not notice it, but it's not as biologically important to feel the rise of testosterone. When my wife says good idea, or that makes sense, or brilliant, oh, you help so much, now I can relax, you're here. Any of those kinds of statements gives a man a sense of importance that raises his testosterone, his stress levels go down. If a woman sees a man and she lists, he comes home and the first thing he hears is complaints about what he forgot to do, what he didn't do, a problem that resulted from something he forgot or didn't do. She often wants to share all that right away. It's not the right time. The time is when you come together. It's the time to, most importantly, to express some of the good feelings, like, oh, you're here, good to see you. And that's all. Just be happy to see him and walk out of the room. We have to realize that, and this is like an insight for women. For men, for thousands of years, if a man came home alive, you were ecstatic. So it's just like some kind of signal in here. I think it's why we men bond with our dogs so much, is that when you come home, the dog goes, he's still alive. He's still alive. It's very funny in my household. I travel a bit. I'm gone about a third of the time. So the dog doesn't always know what my schedule is. So when I'm home, the dog comes into the room and she jumps up on the bed to see if I'm there. And then she gets all excited. He's here. He's here. But it's like, that's what men need, but also women need that. It's like joyful. It's a positive thing to feel that you're appreciated. It's just often that the way men feel appreciated, it can be different from the way women do. Often, one of my first experiences of understanding the differences between men and women, and I wrote about this in a business book I wrote called Work With Me. And it's the different blind spots between men and women, how we think we're doing it right for them, but it's the opposite. And this is one, when our survey of 200,000 men and women, we asked the question, are women appreciated in the workplace? 95% of men said yes. And about 55% of women said yes. That means 45% of women did not feel appreciated, when most of those men did appreciate the women. So what was the blind spot here? And that was the first blind spot I discovered I had, which is we men tend to appreciate someone based upon the result. Like you make me a meal, I go, wow, this is the best chicken ever. Okay, this is fantastic. Or you hand in something to me, you get the job done. Well done, we did this. We made this much money. We accomplished this. Okay, and a guy goes, yes, I did that. But for women, they have a male side that wants that, but they have a female side. The female hormones want you to know everything they went through in that process of getting to the goal. And that understanding, having seen what she's done or understanding more of the details of what she went through, is very important for them to feel valued and appreciated. So back before I even got into the personal relationship, just the gender differences in the workplace, my assistant, Helen, wanted to quit. And I went, why do you want to quit? I'd just given her a raise a few months before. She was very well paid and I loved her. She's like the greatest. She did everything for me. I would just go into my office and counsel people all day long, and she would organize my seminars, organize my finances, schedule all the clients, pay the bills. I mean, she ran the whole show. So she said she wanted to quit, and I said, well, why? And she said, I don't feel appreciated. And in my mind, I said, how could she not feel appreciated? And so I asked, well, tell me what it would look like for me to appreciate you. And she said, well, first of all, you'd know everything I do. And inside I laughed. I said, that's why I appreciate you so much, is I don't have to know what you do. You get it all done. And most men can relate to that. And most women can relate to, if you don't see what I do, how can you appreciate me? So I said to her, well, just give me a few weeks and let's see if you can start to feel how much I appreciate you. So I just started spending extra 5 minutes a day, finding out everything she did. And some, to ask questions. Did that hotel call you back finally? Did that deal finally happen? Oh, did they have to reschedule? When did they reschedule? Just a few questions. And I made it a point, 5 minutes, to hear more of what she did. And, I just had dinner with her the other night. We've been friends for years. She worked for me for another 10 years. I mean, it was a huge turning point, was just that one insight. And that's my message, is sometimes one insight can make a world of difference.
That's beautiful, John, and thanks so much for sharing. And it's such tangible information, and I really hope that the listeners in right now are just taking all this information in. I'd love to just transition this, John, to some people who are listening right now too, that may be experiencing, finding it very, very tough in their current relationship to even get to that point to start with. And have you got some tips or some techniques that some people who maybe find it very difficult in the relationship right now, that they may be at each other's throats quite a lot, or find it very difficult to relate or to connect, and the idea of coming home and just spending some quality time together almost feels distant? Where do people start who may be experiencing a tough relationship? Have you got some sort of tools or tips or techniques that you may be able to share with people of where to start if you're in a relationship that you really want to?
That's a great question. Where to start ending a relationship? And we're talking to half the people out there in relationships. Okay, so it's half the people are going through this. This is what goes on. It can look good when you're out, but the tension at home, the tension in the families, it's huge today. That's why half the people who get married end up getting a divorce. And now more than half of the people who hook up and live together, maybe 3 times, way more than half, end up breaking up and moving on because they're not satisfied. I would start with, what do you do behaviorally? I want to get into other things too, because it's never just the relationship. It's about our own relationship with ourselves and our body and our health and our lifestyle. If you're not feeling happy inside, if you're not being fulfilled, there's no way your partner can help you feel more fulfilled. That when I talked earlier about men saying, well, nothing I can do to make her happy. What I say to these guys, I said, well, it's not your job to make her happy. You could never make her happy. You're getting upset because you're trying to do everything. You can't do that. So let's have realistic expectations. But you can help her. You can support her in her journey of finding happiness, but you can't make her happy, and a woman can't make a man happy. So that's the first thing, is that we give up this attachment to feeling in control, where we have to make our partners feel a certain way. We need to be more like the sky, and the clouds pass by, the rainstorms come, and the cloud stays the same. That's our love. It's a spaciousness. And that's all just abstract teaching, but the practical thing is, if you're wanting to mend a relationship, it would be different for a man or a woman. So what a man can do is, the first thing I would recommend to a man is, I want you to very gently and gradually, I mean, you can do it faster. You can say, okay, let's sit down and read this book, and nod our head and say how we relate to it. Okay, that's, one way. But sometimes the other partner's not even willing to do that. So you have to sort of soften and build bridges. And so you would basically have a conversation and say, something's coming up. There's a concert next weekend. It has to be like something in the future. Let's make a plan to go see that. Does that sound good to you? And they might even go, no. And it's, what would feel good to you? Let's get out and do something. And so you schedule something in advance, which is not for him, but it's for her. It's very important that women can look forward to something they're going to do out of the ordinary. And then she might have a reaction to you, says, oh, I can't make time for that. Then listen to why not. Listening is the thing you want to do, is to create more context when she's upset about something or bothered about something, to listen 10 times longer than you normally would. And that means, oh, yeah, I can't bother talking about this. Oh, well, what's going on? And, oh, I don't have time. You wouldn't understand anyway. I go, well, I would like to know, what's it feel like? And just be persistent and ask a little bit more questions. Because what has happened is, usually when couples are more distant, is she has tried to express herself and he has unknowingly shut her down with comments like, well, that's silly. Well, that's ridiculous. Well, you shouldn't feel that way, but that's not true. But I didn't do that, or I didn't mean to say that. I wasn't trying to do that. See, we have all of these explanations why she shouldn't be upset. Instead of giving explanations why she shouldn't be upset, we need to give explanations of why she should be upset, or at least create a space of trying to understand. So a magic takeaway phrase there is, well, help me understand that better. Well, tell me about that. Well, what happened? Oh my goodness. And you probably were wanting this to happen. And she goes, yeah, I was wanting that to happen. Well, help me understand this better. How did you feel? Oh my gosh. And what else? Really? What else? These are the kind of responses. And if you put in your mind, we're going to do this 10 times longer than I think it should take. Okay. Now you're talking Venusian conversation where she feels safe. And a lot of women listening are thinking, no, I don't have time to have that kind of a conversation. I don't want that. And they feel that way because in the past, when they have opened up, he has shut her down. So that's what I see happening today is as women don't feel safe to express what's inside, because men tend to hear it the wrong way, then they hold it in. And when women hold in emotions, their stress levels shoot up. And the symptom of high stress in women, besides disease, which we can get to, I hope, and lack of health, it's also an overly busy brain. And what happens in their brain is they start worrying more. Just an article came out today about how much more women worry about retirement than men do. But it's all levels. We see the brain scans of women worrying more than men. And if you look at the limbic system, it's twice as big in women. Under moderate stress, 8 times blood flow to the worrying part of the brain. Her memory of everything that's ever gone wrong comes up into her awareness, and it's hard for her to relax and respond to his comment like, oh, just forget it. Okay, we're done with this. When can we move on? Why don't we have a good time? You don't push a woman that way. It doesn't work. And yet men think it should work. See, we think it should work, but if it doesn't work, clearly it doesn't work. So what does work, are these ideas that I've talked about. And now we have a lot of the science to help explain it, because when a woman can relax and feel I can express something without having to protect myself, then her oxytocin levels increase. And if she can express herself without upsetting a man, her estrogen levels increase. You see, what happens when women feel men are going to blow up and explode or pout or get mad or get their feelings hurt by what she says, now they get into a space where they feel like they're his mother, and they have to either protect him for what she's going to say, or she has to walk on eggshells because it might upset him. And then they look at it like he's a child or he's a threat. And either way, her testosterone levels start to increase in his presence and her estrogen levels go down. Estrogen increases when you feel that you have the support you need. Oxytocin increases when you get that support that you need. And those are two important hormones that have to go together. And so when a woman feels afraid to communicate to her partner, the relationship is no longer an opportunity to lower stress. It becomes a source of stress. Now, there's biological research on this showing that in the modern world, they've done big tests on this in the workplace for women who work outside the home. They're in the workplace. Their cortisol level, the stress hormone, is twice as high as the average man. Now, this is not every woman. This is averages, but it's twice as high for women than men. When those women go home, whether they're married or not, so we can't blame it all on the man, but when they go home, their cortisol levels double again. So a woman at home in the modern world today who works outside the home, when she comes home, her cortisol levels are 4 times higher than a man who's relaxing on the couch. And this is the state of relationships today. And it's very hard on her, but it's also hard on him, because one of the things men particularly require is the ability to rebuild their testosterone after a day of work. So the way testosterone works and how we grow in testosterone is when we're presented with a challenge and we feel confident to meet that challenge, dopamine will increase in the brain, testosterone levels will increase, and we actually use up the testosterone by solving problems. So as long as a man is solving problems, feeling confident he can solve problems, his body will make and use up his testosterone. So at the end of the day, if there's no problems to solve, or there's nothing he can do to solve those problems, his body will rebuild the testosterone, but only if he's stress-free. But the way men are designed is we have the capacity, it's a skill. Now, most men are not using it as much today, but it's the ability to forget our problems, to turn off, to relax, to do something that's not responsible. And that's called a hobby. That's called entertainment, or that's called meditation, or that's called exercise. Anything a man does for his own relaxation and pleasure, which he's able to forget his serious responsibilities, will lower his stress level. Then his body can rebuild testosterone in a very significant way, particularly if he's still conscious. So it's conscious relaxation. And that's actually the definition of meditation. Conscious relaxation, the most efficient way for a man to rebuild his testosterone levels. However, sitting and watching a football game has proven to increase a man's testosterone levels. Watching the news, he's relaxing while watching the news. Other people's problems that he doesn't have to solve helps to rebuild his testosterone. And so this is a dynamic for men who are have a great need to keep their testosterone levels up. Women have a much greater need, not for testosterone, but for estrogen and for oxytocin, which are the key hormones that regulate her stress levels.
Wow, John, so much content in there. I'm really glad that there's video replays available of this. So I'm encouraging everyone to listen to this probably about 16 times over just to understand and comprehend all the amazing information you just covered there. It really is such a breakthrough in combining the science and the understanding of human psychology and the way we interact to really end up with a space that we can be comfortable with each other in our own relationships and with ourselves. And you touched on a couple of really key points there. And the first really important point to understand is that often we assume too many things, or we project what we think on other people, whereas asking questions can be just such a great way to broach a conversation, to broach a relationship, and to come from a place of maybe I don't know exactly what my partner's thinking, or maybe I don't know exactly the circumstances, maybe I don't know best as to what I thought might happen, and let me just ask some questions and better understand how the other person in my relationship is perceiving that. And the second part of that is that you shared so profoundly is that we're all individuals on our own journey here in this life. We can share a relationship with people. In fact, we share many relationships, not just with our loved ones, but our family, our friends, our work colleagues, and so many different relationships that we share. But it's actually about us, and it's not up to us to be responsible for someone else's happiness or for us to be accountable for someone else's happiness. It's actually we're on our own journey, and for us to be able to truly connect with ourselves and be happy in ourselves and in who we are and truly love ourselves means that we can be in the capacity to be able to support and love and nurture those around us. So thank you so much for touching on those points as well as many others. Now, I just wanted to take a quick breather here to let people know that we are actually going to be taking some questions for John today to interact. If you have any personal questions, if you have any conceptual ideas that you'd love to discuss with John, you can actually raise your hand to join the conversation, or you can pop a question in the chat box. And John, we've got a couple of questions coming through. I'd love to jump in and ask a couple with you here today before we transition on. Marilyn asks, John, my partner agrees that small signs of affection are important, but what he considers a sign of affection, I consider normal behavior. How do I get myself to even perceive what he does as affection? I feel like I miss the opportunity again and again. And then the next part of that question is this hormonal and behavioral difference limited to men and women, or does it also apply to a relationship in which one partner, regardless of sex, takes a more masculine role and the other a more feminine role? Thank you so much, John. Just 20 minutes in and I'm benefiting so much. That's from Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn.
Marilyn, thank you so much. I was a little distracted while you were reading. I was a little distracted because I hadn't finished the other answer. So if you can give me a break here and let me finish the other answer. Can you hear me all right?
Please, John, please.
Okay. So it was what we can do to sort of bring things together. And I didn't say from the woman's side, what can she do to sort of bring the man back into her life? And it would be the reverse of what I just said. Instead of saying, hey, let's go and do something together that you would like, you don't do that. You give him an opportunity to give you what you like. For a man to connect with his partner, he needs to create opportunities where he can take action to do things to show her, and so she can experience him physically doing things, planning things, listening, whatever it might be that supports her need. Now, the way a woman can bring back a man is to create situations where he can do things for her. Okay, so it's a difference. It's not, if I'm wanting to get close to my wife, I don't create situations for her to do things for me. But for women, if you want a man to be closer to you, create a situation where he can do things for you. For example, we can say the same date example, which is, oh, there's a wonderful concert next week. I was so looking forward to seeing it. Or, you know, my friend told me about this restaurant. I would love to go see that. Would you take me? Or I'd like to go there. Would you take me? Or we haven't been to the beach lately. You know, it looks like a nice time. Would you take me? So you make a request. Then he will maybe resist if you're kind of like distant. He might grumble. And what I want women to know about men's grumbles is they're temporary. When women grumble, it's not so temporary. But when men grumble, he's just there like, do I really have to do this, whatever? And all you have to do is persist a little bit and say, okay, well then just forget it if you don't want to go. Instead, he's in a state of inertia. He doesn't want to do anything. So you got to give him a little nudge. That's all it is. That's your love for him, is to give him the opportunity, the nudge, in order to do something for you, to bring that best part of him out of him, to turn him on, so to speak. And so what you do is, oh, would you take me? Because, oh, why don't you go with your girlfriends? I'd rather go do something. And maybe he's being a little passive aggressive at that point. Then you just don't react to that. You go, yeah, that's probably true. My girlfriends and I would really love it. But it'd be so much nicer if you were there. I'd be really happy if you took me. Will you take me? And you persist in that. That's the key to this. And finally, he'll kind of grumble and kind of go, okay, I'll do it. And you go, oh, thank you, as if he did it willingly and happily. And then by the time he's planning that, he's going to think he planned the whole thing. He's going to take you. And then all you have to do is practice no complaining, but just focusing on what good happened. Whatever happens, it was an adventure. It was fun. It was good to be together. And he'll just shine because he's providing something for you. That's the whole key. And then if something comes up where, you know, he says something or he's going to do something, he doesn't do it, you need to tell him how you feel, but use a different skill. This is how you do it. You just say, you know, the other day when you forgot to do this or you did that, I just want to tell you how I felt. It's not a big deal. That is the most important thing you can ever say to a man. I just want to tell you how I feel. It's not a big deal, and you don't have to say anything in response. This is an FYI, for your information only. You're not requiring an apology. You're not requiring him to change. You're not requiring him to feel bad. He's not going to be tested on how well he heard you. I promise you, if you give up all of that demand, a guy will relax and really hear you in a new way. And gradually he'll be wanting to hear more and think you're just the most amazing lady in the world because he can do something which is a mistake and he doesn't get punished. But he does get to hear how you felt and what you would like in the future. And that's it. And you don't have to say anything. You don't have to promise. You don't have to feel bad, anything. If he tries to explain, no, I just want you to know how I feel and then I'm done. And you know, my wife learned that technique. Oh my God, I can hear anything if she just starts out with, I just need you to know how I feel, and then we're over it. Because that's all a man wants. All he wants is let's be over it. And his tendency inside is to try to convince you to get over it, as if he can. He doesn't know that the more you resist somebody, the more they stay stuck in that state. In the same way, the more women resist men, the more he will stay stuck in that state. This is part of our power to bring out the worst in someone or our power to bring out the best in them. But in the bigger realm, we certainly can't control them, but we can certainly help them be their best or we can help them be their worst. That's all we can do. So having said that, I think the essence of the next question, I can tell a story that might answer it, and I hope it does.
Thank you.
In the first year of my marriage with Bonnie, I was eager to have a better relationship and so forth. So I was reading a relationship book and somebody had given it to me. I would never have bought it. It's called The Hug Book. And this is 30 years ago. Okay. And the Hug Book, I go, who could write a book about hugs? What is the deal with hugs? So I read this book and they're talking about the glory of hugs, how important hugs are. You should do 4 hugs a day and so forth. And of course, 30 years later, it's my motto, at least 4 hugs a day. But I thought it was a silly thing, but I thought, I'll try it. Why not just try it? And if it works, it works. So there wasn't any part of me that needed hugs or even wanted to hug, but I figured, hey, if this is going to make her happy, I'll happy to do it. So she was making dinner and I came in, I just sort of looked at her and I went forward to give her a hug. And she went, what are you doing? I said, oh, I want to give you a hug. And she goes, why? And I said, I read it in the hug book. And she said, oh, you read it in the hug book, and that's why you want to give me a hug. I went, yeah, thinking I was doing something good. And she says, so you don't really want to hug me. You're just giving me a hug because you read it in a book. I said, well, I do want to hug you, but I wouldn't have wanted to hug you if I hadn't read it in the book. And she said, well, I don't want to hug you if you don't want to hug me. So when you want to hug me, give me a hug. Otherwise, I don't want to hug you if you read it in a book. And I walked away. I go, well, that didn't work. So I thought about it. It took me overnight to figure this one out. So then the next day, I just came up to her and I just, hi, honey. And I reached forward to give her a hug. And she's like froze. And she says, why are you giving me a hug? And I said, I just felt like it. And then she says, okay. And then she went in for the hug. And we had a really nice hug. Now, what a woman could say to me in reaction to that, when I didn't tell men to give 4 hugs a day, expressing affection. This is like one example of expressing affection. Doing it because I told them to do it because it's something that works. I've had some women say to me, I don't want him to do it because he read it in a book or somebody told him to do it. I want him to feel like he's doing it. I want him to want to do it and so forth. And what I explained is that after I started doing those hugs with my wife, and I didn't feel like it. I really didn't. I did it because I read it in the book. But when she started to enjoy the hugs, I was now connecting to her feminine spirit that enjoys affection in the hugs. And it awakened inside of me, the feminine inside of me, so that now I really enjoy my hugs and I miss the hugs. But it took several years. But now I'm this person who can completely relate to her needs because I first met her needs and she appreciated me for that. That then awakened the part of me that also needs those hugs and now wants those hugs. So that's the key for women to understand. Is part of this whole thing is we're living in 2 worlds and we're coming closer and closer together. So anytime a man does anything that he learned as an expression of affection, because that's what women would like, you let it in and go, oh, thank you, that feels good, and know that he's doing his best. Because the ultimate expression of love that we should always acknowledge, and we don't, is our partner is trying. That's the expression of love, is our partner is trying. Not that they're perfect, not that they behave the way you want them to or think the way you want them to think or feel, but they're trying to give you the support that you deserve. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, even though it's not their nature. But the wonderful part of it is after a while, it becomes their nature. You know, the flip side of this, which is a big deal for men, is that men will want to have sex with their wives and their wives will say yes, but they don't really want to have sex. And you can't suddenly just say, well, you should want to have sex. I tell men that's totally unrealistic. She's not in the mood for it. She doesn't have this huge amount of blood flowing down south saying sex, sex, sex. You know, she's got this little bit saying, well, maybe, I don't know, I could be in the mood. And so men are like, they feel all rejected because their wives are not into sex as much as they are. Instead of saying, wait a second, you know, we're designed differently. You're designed to want sex more. So your job is you're motivated to create the situations to, in a sense, seduce her or create a safety, create the situation for her to feel her desire for sex. But insecure men are just men who don't understand that we're different. Will often feel like, well, she should be pursuing me and I want her to be seducing me and I want her to want sex just as much as I want it. And women are just not that way. There are some women in the beginning that are that way. But look, I'm a marriage counselor. People have been married 10, 15, 20 years. And this comes up a lot. I'll just put it that way, where the husbands are kind of feeling hurt and they're feeling rejected because their wives don't want to have sex as much as him. Then karma comes in, or it's biological karma. After a while of him feeling rejected, his testosterone levels start to drop and he's no longer interested in sex. He's off having porn, but not interested in having sex with his wife. He can't even get turned on to his wife anymore because he's been rejected so many times. Just as women, after a while, they stop opening their heart to share their feelings because they end up feeling rejected when men go into Mr. Fix-It mode. So this is how we shut each other down, but we can open up by becoming more conscious and more tender and considerate of what our partner's needs. So something a woman can say when a guy wants sex and she's not in the mood, never reject him, but you don't have to have sex. You can just say, oh, sex, I love having sex with you. This isn't the time. Let's schedule it for tomorrow. Give her some time to work up to it, be prepared for it, to, take a shower, get clean, whatever. Women can't just jump right into sex quite often. And so it gives her some time, and he doesn't end up feeling rejected. If you just go, no, I'm not in the mood, or I have a headache or whatever, you can say, I have a headache. I would love to have sex with you, but right now I'm not feeling so well. Maybe we can schedule it. Then you get the next obstacle, scheduled sex. I feel like I need to write a book called Scheduling Sex. Why and why not? Okay, so there's so many men, they're terrified of scheduling sex, and they rationalize it. Oh, it's not romantic. It's just spontaneous. She should always be responding to me. That when I want sex, she should be wanting it, so forth. It's because this part of us down south we have no control over. But when we're young, it's controlling us. It pops up all the time. And so it's just like no problem. But later on, it doesn't pop up as quickly as you think it will. And so all it takes is one experience for a guy where it didn't pop up. And he's like, oh my God, I have no control. Now what happens is the thought of scheduling sex means, well, what if it doesn't pop up? I have no control. If you have a busy life and children, you've got to schedule it. You put it on the map, and that actually helps women to be more aroused because they're looking forward to that. They're sort of pushing away all their responsibilities. They're cleaning things up. They're getting things done. They're freeing their minds so they can actually enjoy sex. They can look forward to it. Meanwhile, for him, all he has to know is he's going to create a situation by scheduling, which allows her to open up. And when she opens up, she will turn him on. Women have the power to turn you on. Just kissing, lying naked, it will come about. It may not pop up as fast as in the past, but it will come about. And if it doesn't, what you do then is you do stimulation of manual stimulation or oral stimulation to give her a climax. And if your body gives a woman a climax without any attempt to give you a climax, next time your body is going to be going, my turn, and it will perform quite well. So there's an energetic of when you provide a climax for a woman, your body testosterone levels will increase. There's a lot of extra techniques in that, and there's good nutritional support for that. There's something that from beets that will help increase circulation down there for men who don't have good circulation. Beet extract. There's Neocell, I think it's called. There's another one called Tonkat Ali, which is a herb. I used to use it. It brought my testosterone levels up. I can't use it now or I'll be thinking about sex all the time. It's a natural herb. It's not one of these sex drugs from Asia, which they put Cialis in it. That just was the news today. And if you buy these, Thunder Thighs or whatever they are, big sex drugs, usually from Asia, they put Cialis in it. But Tonkat Ali comes from the Far East, and it is an herb that tells your brain to make testosterone even if you have high estrogen levels. That's its function. And what happens to men today, because of all the xenoestrogens in the environment, the estrogens get into our body and tells the brain to make less testosterone. And this is one of the major reasons why men over 40 have lower testosterone levels. Men at 50 in America, the average is half their testosterone levels. And people are starting to think that's normal. It's common, but it's what's normal, what's healthy is it's just the same as you had when you were a young man. This is the way it is in indigenous tribes where they're not exposed to toxicity. For myself, because I do regular cleanses, which I think is a very important part of healing and being healthy, is do cleanses, different kinds of fasts. There's all kinds of them. That's what raised my testosterone levels. I'm back to what I was when I was a young man, and I'm 64 years old. And people say, well, should I get my testosterone levels tested and whatever? Look, if you're turned on to your wife, you've got plenty of testosterone. If you find yourself not able to be turned on to your wife, feeling interested in sex, but you're interested in sex with other people or with pornography, that's a clear sign of low testosterone. The more you're attracted to people you don't know, and the more digital it is, that's a symptom that you have low testosterone. If you can be attracted to a real person who you care about, and you can sustain the attraction, that's good, solid testosterone. I know it's paradoxical, but see, when you make love to a woman in real life, you have a different hormonal response in your body than if you make love to a fantasy woman on your computer, or if you go to a prostitute. They've measured, or you have sex alone. You have a different emotion, you have a different hormonal response to sex alone than sex with a real woman.
Wow, John, so many things to consider, and I just love the broad understanding you have of not just relationships at a general level, but the very specific science of how men and women interact, how we're physiologically different, how we perform differently, how we think differently, and the ways that we can navigate through this to really be in a great state of health and connection. And I just want to transition. We've got so many questions, but I'm
going to give short answers now. I'll give short answers.
Well, I just actually wanted to ask you, while we're transitioning there, because this is the Personalized Health Summit. This is all about understanding, all these things that influence our health. Relationships is such a huge way, or a huge factor that influences our health and our happiness at any given point in time. I was just wondering if you can share a little bit of a perspective about how relationships actually influence our health, how they can actually, either keep us in a state of health or disease or sickness or illness or happiness, and how does that actually work?
Okay, so let me preface it. I'm going to try to keep it short, but today, more than any time in history, relationships have the power for greater health or greater sickness and disease. It's like the opportunity to succeed is equal to the opportunity to fail. And why is that? Most of our problems today in terms of our health stem from our higher stress levels, cortisol levels. So cortisol, as soon as you have elevated cortisol levels, it will throw out your hormones out of balance. To make cortisol for women means that progesterone is used up to make cortisol. So now you'll have low progesterone, and progesterone is a calming hormone. Estrogen is a speeding up hormone. So we need estrogen, but we have to balance it with progesterone. And when you have cortisol, you run out of progesterone. So also for men, chronic stress will inhibit over time a man's ability to make testosterone. Low testosterone for a man is directly equated to heart attacks. Okay, that's just a bottom line. So in terms of health, what high cortisol levels means is, one, our immune system shuts down. Your body actually makes less white blood cells to protect you from cancer and infections. It makes less white blood cells when you have high stress. For example, if you were to get a speeding ticket, which is an invasion, a policeman coming in, writing a ticket, suddenly you're not in control of your life. It's a huge shock to your body. It's a big stress. It would take about 5-6 days for your cortisol levels to come back down after that experience. That's why you keep thinking about it. Your brain's going, why did I do that? I should have done that. Bad, it's just a ticket. But anyway, you get all upset about it. Your cortisol levels rise, take about 5-6 days to come back down, if they do. And when they come back down, quite commonly, people don't realize they catch a cold or get the flu. Now, why is that? And that's because you lose your white blood cells for those 5 or 6 days, and infections have a chance to multiply. There's always infections going on in our body, but the immune system keeps it down. But when you inhibit the immune system, then infections can start growing and growing and growing. And then after 5 or 6 days, the cortisol levels go down. Then your immune system turns on and it wakes up and goes, oh, there's infections all over the place. Let's create a fever that will stop the infections, that kills bacteria that are infectious. Or let's create snot and let's start going through the system and cleaning everything out with mucus and trying to clear out these toxic substances, these bacteria that are multiplying in the body. So actually, when you get a cold or flu, it's a sign that your immune system came up into strength. A sign that you're overworking, for example, is when you go on vacation, if you suddenly get sick. This is like was a mystery for me. I used to work really hard and I go on vacation, I get sick every time I go. And that's because when I went on vacation, now I'm relaxing. I'm no longer running on adrenaline and cortisol, and my immune system turns on and says, oh, look at all these infections. Let's clean house. And so that's one of the signs that you're really going to age fast if you get sick on vacations. So that's one sign. So the next thing that happens when you have elevated stress levels is your digestion shuts down. You can't make hydrochloric acid to help digest your proteins when you have elevated cortisol levels. Well, if you can't digest your proteins, then you can't get from your protein the amino acids necessary to make dopamine, which makes you motivated and excited in a positive way, serotonin, GABA, all these proteins which are necessary for the brain to feel good. We can't make them efficiently if we're under stress. The next thing that happens when you have chronic cortisol levels is it causes inflammation in the gut. And when you have inflammation in the gut, you cannot make these different proteins from your amino acids. Your body then has to make certain proteins. One of those proteins we talked about, we had in one of our previous conversations, is called our glycoproteins. And there's certain glycoproteins that activate vitamin D. So if you're under stress, you can't make these glycoproteins that will make vitamin D work for you. And if you can't make vitamin D work for you, that's 3,000 genes that you can't regulate properly. So basically today, the biggest, sign the medical community is waking up to functioning of vitamin D is like one of the most important things because it regulates liver, it regulates your lungs, your heart, your brain, particularly your bones and your mood. If you're not regulating calcium properly in your bones, they get weak, but your brain right away, your moods go up and down because vitamin D is not working. Sometimes it's just a deficiency of vitamin D, which is why you go out in sunshine, which makes vitamin D, and then your mood gets better because it regulates your calcium. But then very quickly you can use up your glycoproteins and you crash back down if you don't have healthy gut. So once again, stress inhibits digestion. Stress causes inflammation in the gut, which gives rise to a variety of autoimmune diseases that happen over time. So the next thing that happens when you're under stress is your body leaves the fat burning mode. So you have to be able to run fast. So your body wants fast fuel. So when your body goes into fast fuel, it can only get energy from sugar. So now we're craving sugar. And if we're under chronic stress, if it's just a quick surge of stress, not a big deal. But if we're in chronic stress, then we're craving sugar all the time. And for most body types, not all body types, they can't burn fat as a source of energy. When they're the body's saying, well, I need fast energy, I have fast energy. So it inhibits the body's ability to burn fat, which is slow, long-lasting energy. The body converts fat into ketones as a fuel for the brain. So the brain can be clear and so forth. But if we're running on sugar all the time, which is what chronic stress does, then what can happen is we not only can get diabetes of our muscle cells, but we can get diabetes in the brain. And that's what some scientists at universities are calling Alzheimer's and dementia, or diabetes of the brain, which is the brain is no longer able to utilize sugar as a source of energy because it had too much sugar. See, there has to alternate. Every meal, there should be an alternation of first burning off the carbs, then your body burns off the fats. But if you eat too many carbs, then your body just stores the fat and it gets all of its energy from the carbs. Then your blood sugar drops and now you're craving more sugar. And cortisol is what raises your blood sugar back up. Cortisol is the most important thing when it comes to regulating blood sugar. So all of that is the stress hormone causes so many of our conditions and throws our body out of balance. What can help bring balance to our cortisol levels on a relationship level is when men and women learn how to first care for themselves to create hormonal balance and then help each other, as opposed to look to each other for that help and do the wrong things, which is what people are doing today. So in essence, what I'm saying is because we're so much more conscious today, women have access to masculine and feminine. Historically, if a woman was in danger, she went to a man to protect her. She didn't have access to her masculine hormones. She didn't have the consciousness that could access the whole of her being. But today, when women are under stress, they tend to go to their masculine side and their testosterone levels go up, their estrogen levels go down. When men are under stress, meaning that they can't solve the problem, their testosterone levels, basically, they're not solving a problem, then what happens is stress goes up in a man and testosterone converts into estrogen. So a man's estrogen levels go up and his testosterone levels go down. Historically, this would not happen. But as men have greater access, greater sensitivity, greater empathy, greater compassion, all these wonderful conscious traits, I'm conscious of my masculine, my feminine. If I'm under stress, the tendency for men is to go right over to their female rather than find a way to build up their masculine. And so for women under stress, they go to their masculine rather than find a way to build up their female, to support the female. So this is one of our new challenges. Relationships can help us meet that challenge, but even more so, it's much more complicated to be an enlightened person. You have to nurture both the female and the male side of you. As a man, I always have to honor my masculine side first and then my female side. For a woman, she has to learn to honor her female side and not go to the masculine as the answer to her problems. She has to come to her female, which is learning how to ask for support, learning how to create and prioritize her own nurturing needs, as opposed to get lost in money making. There's another part of life, which is fun and happiness and lightness and nurturing and doing things that you love to do, which historically might seem as selfish. For survival, women need to give themselves permission to do that. Major oxytocin producer is anytime a woman does something she enjoys without being in a hurry. Anytime a woman does something that she loves to do and she's not in a hurry. The key to it is not being in a hurry. Whenever you're rushing, your testosterone levels are going up, your estrogen levels are going down, your stress levels will be going up. If a man's in a hurry, often his stress levels will be going down.
John, I think next time we have a conversation, we're going to book a full day.
Thank you. I tried to give a short answer. Forgive me.
I think that was a short answer for you. I think the information that you have and the knowledge and wisdom that you have to share with people is just phenomenal. And I'm so grateful that we are able to have you on the summit here to share so much of this information with people. The comments that are coming through, Jan saying, wow, this is fascinating, educational information. Thank you, John. Marilyn, so much great information. Thank you, John. Where do I send the check of dollars? I'll save from not needing psychotherapy anymore. There's so many things going through. David says this session will require numerous relics, tending to digest all this great information. He'll be re-listening in, and it's just such a great way to see people understanding and comprehending and listening to this information you have to share, John. So one of the points I just wanted to touch on as we get towards the end of this call is you mentioned that people are different, and you're very aware, and those on the summit are very aware of the intention here, that the personalized health aspect, that everybody is different. And John, you've shared so much great information that the obvious differences between men and women, but even men within their own domain have differences between each other. And there may have been some men listening to this call that think, maybe it doesn't sound quite like me, but generally is, and maybe some women the same. And we've been working for a very long time, over 10 years, in fact, to be able to create PH360, which is a great way for you to understand what's more right for you to be happy and healthy. And it really goes into a lot of ways for you to understand more about your mind and how you think, as John touched on, how we perceive situations, how we might think about certain activities our partner might do, or might behaviors they might have, and how we can start to understand them better. And even in an area that talks about social interactions and how we can understand more about who we are and how we operate and perceive things, and how other people may be different to us or may resonate with us at a particular point in time. It really is such a powerful program to bring that together. So we'd encourage you to check out ph360.me if you haven't already. It really is a great way that we're starting to tangibly understand a lot of these personalized health conversations now. So John, I'd love to just ask you a final question to wrap up, and you're welcome to go for 6 hours on this one if you like. I'm sure everybody's going to stay on the call according to the comments here. And for those watching the replay, I'm really excited about the information that's on here, and I'm sure you'll be enjoying a lot of this content. John, the future of humanity is it's an interesting conversation for me. I like talking about the future a lot. I very much enjoy these conversations, and I know we've had a couple of conversations along this line, but where do you see things going? I mean, the relationships where we stand, most of the problems we have in the world is that we don't understand each other, whether it's religions or wars or all of the above that come into play, politics, everything else that's underpins a lot of the issues that we have with humanity. Where do you see the world going? What is there hope for us at the moment? With our relationships, how does that influence our health? We've got almost 3.5 billion people suffering from chronic pain disease as we speak right now, which is almost half the world's population. We really are a state of epidemic disease and ill health. And where do we stand? What do you see happening over the coming future years or decades? And what can we do now to move into a space to help with humanity's progression?
Well, I'm extremely hopeful. All I can look at is the changes in my own life, how my life with new insight and new awareness and new knowledge, which is also available, and so available with the internet as well, and how it affects me, it has affected me in my life to create a better life. And when I work with people and I take my seminars and people come to my website and they take our courses, the results, like what we're hearing, people just go, wow, this is changing my life. So what I see is transformation is real. There's new information, there's new knowledge that comes in. A personal health 360 brings in a whole new wisdom that comes into people's life regarding their health, what they can do for their health. And with that knowledge, real change is taking place. It's a minority of people. It's a drop in the bucket that are experiencing that. But what's happening is that's real change, and it really is happening. To a certain extent, it's about time is our challenge here. Many of the people that are older, they just have to die. You know, the establishment people, when they die, this younger generation is coming forth with a whole new set of values. And, you know, my generation was, when we were in our 20s, you know, it was rebelliousness, it was higher consciousness, and higher consciousness is here. The expression of higher consciousness is the internet. I mean, we have created it. And now what do we do with it? It creates a new crisis, the crisis of realizing we have it all within ourselves. I have it all in my computer, the access to unlimited information for me to ask any question, to get answers, and to know that some answers there's all kinds of answers out there. It's up to me, with so much choice, to pick the answers that work for me. And what we see in medicine, for example, is such a complete failure, is that the more dependent people become on someone outside them to hand them a drug, which doesn't require them to exercise better, eat better, take wise supplements to adjust certain things to compensate for the deficiencies in our food due to farming practices. So we live in this toxic world, and now I'm going to go to somebody who's going to give me a pill and do it for me. That's the losing strategy. And more people are seeing it. They're seeing through the illusion. You know, we see it in the commercials where this is a drug that's going to help your this, and it's going to cause this side effect and this side effect and this side effect, while they're playing beautiful music and seeing people happy in nature. It's like there's a trance where people think someone's going to save them, someone's going to do it for them, as opposed to we have to do it for ourselves. We have the resources within ourselves to do it. It's a different value system. It's a different source of happiness, but we're seeing the residue of the old, where we're depending on someone else for everything rather than being able to find it inside of ourselves. You know, probably half my website is relationship skills were based upon me making a change within myself, not trying to change my partner. When it comes to health, making me take a change within myself, what I can do, what support I can utilize based on my choice to make the change inside myself. Externally, what I see is all the technology is there for us to become energy sustainable, for us to use alternative energies. And once that integrates in, maybe 20, 30 years, everything shifts, because the economy is dependent upon us. I have to have money so I can buy fuel to pay my electric bill. And if I don't use that currency, I can't survive. So what people are going to have is self-sufficiency with energy. And suddenly I don't even have to use dollars anymore. I can have a garden. I can have my own energy. I can share seeds with my neighbor. You know, the whole control of the planet is shifting as we're all experiencing this sustainability, which is, first of all, finding the power within ourselves, then gives us the confidence to act in harmony with others. All of the distress is you've got it and I don't, so I'm going to steal it from you. And those are the people in power. There's always been people in power who had to take it from those. There were the haves and the have-nots. It goes to an extreme, and we see the futility of it, and then it shifts. And this is how things change. And it will change. I see it changing. It's a wake-up call. And you know, the wonderful thing about all the changes is they happen when they happen so suddenly, it's shocking. For example, in America, how quickly gay marriage became accepted, you know, as a thing. I mean, just overnight, practically. Marijuana, you know, the freedom to smoke marijuana. These are things that, you know, 30 years ago, I was saying were fine, but the collective consciousness has to pick up. And literally, this new crop of young people coming up with this higher consciousness, they're faced with the challenges. The old way is the haves and the have-nots. The new way is sharing, but you can only share and feel free to share when you have. And if you don't have, you're always trying to take from somebody else. So it's the, you know, power over others, and that is changing. And, you know, it sounds abstract, but it's love. It's, you know, when you can love your family, when you can love your spouse and be totally open, you have a foundation to create love around you. And the leaders of today, they don't have that. That's not their life. It's an old-fashioned life of control and manipulation, and we have more and you have less, and slave labor. I mean, this is the way the world has built. We can't tolerate it now. The younger generation wants to throw up when we see that. That's because a new conscience has emerged, and that is the integration of the masculine and the feminine. You know, when I look at evil in the world, I see evil as just simply imbalance. Evil and corruption is masculine energy without feminine energy. Masculine energy is power, get things done. Feminine energy is love and happiness. Those are the two purposes in life. Is I want the power to influence others, and I want to be happy. But to be happy, I have to care about others. It has to be a unifying force, is love. So in the past, we had females with a lot of female energy, but no power. So they were victims. So there's this whole history of feminine victimness and the male being the perpetrator, masculine without female. Now what we have is the potential, as we have all these relationship conflicts, suddenly we're trying to figure it out. But in figuring out relationship challenges, which I spent my life doing, I know the result of it. When I harmonize with my wife, I can only connect with her and continue having passion with her over 30 years. It's because I embrace the female as much as I embrace my masculine. Those two forces come into harmony as demonstrated through our harmony along with passion. Not a harmony which is based upon you be you, I'll be me, and I'll just ignore you and you ignore me, and I won't open up to you, and we'll stop having sex after 10 years because we don't want to be open to each other. That's the traditional relationship. The romance was gone. The love was there like you would love a partner, but there wasn't the intimacy where you can continue sharing more and more of who you are. As my wife can open up more her feminine energy, it awakens more of the feminine in me. As I can be strong in my masculine, present, there for her, supportive of my family and supportive of myself, so she doesn't feel she has to take care of me like a child. My strong masculinity creates a spaciousness and a masculinity that balances her femininity, and she becomes a more whole person, which allows us to dig deeper, me digging deeper in my masculine motivation and mission and caring and spaciousness and consideration. This, the masculine quality coming forth, allows her feminine to come forth, and her feminine comes forth and opens up in me greater challenges of empathy and compassion and generosity and equality, making decisions on an equal level, not suppressing mine, but not suppressing hers. These are momentous things to do, but these are what people want to do today. That's the hope, because when you can accomplish that, what it means is we're creating a world where the masculine and the feminine are equal. They're in balance. They don't have to be suppressed. Women don't have to become men to be equal to men, which is what's been happening. Once again, good intentions, we go way out of balance and we go, oh, that was a little bit too far that way. You know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, came into the world at a time of that emergence of we want equality, but we couldn't yet discern, at least the population couldn't discern, that equality does not mean the same. We don't have to be the same to be equal. The word behind education, university, unity in diversity. Embracing diversity is really where we're all going, rather than let's all become, you know, just all the same or have the same belief systems and so forth. But let's learn to embrace differences and recognize that they bring out more of who we are. And that's the hope in the world. That's what I see. And the popularity of gender awareness is a big part of that. The popularity of what you're doing, which is individualized health, instead of doctors just saying, oh, everybody should be doing Lipitor. Oh, everybody should be doing this. Everybody should be doing that. No, certain people have certain exercises they need, certain people different meditation practices, certain people different supplements for them, certain preferences for diet. And ultimately, who is the person that how do we know all that? It comes from inside ourselves. Once we find that balance, there's an intuitive knowing, which allows us to be unique and different, but only results when we allow other people to be unique and different. We cannot give ourselves the freedom of full expression so our unique gifts and talents can come forth. We can't give that to ourselves until we first give it to others. We have to allow others to be who they are, to bring forth who they are. We may disagree with them, but we need to let them come forth. And the place this shows up within family dynamics, where you have to change to protect everybody from upsetting this person, upsetting that person. We need to relax and open up. And I believe the greatest challenge and the greatest workshop for me has been having an intimate relationship and learning to sustain that connection, that passion. And that's my path, and that's what I teach. It could be, certainly there's other ways to do this, but the good news is it's happening.
Wow, John, such deep insight and perspective. And I think it's summed up well by the comments that are coming through that conversation is, can John run for president? It's going to be a John Gray versus Donald Trump if we keep going any longer on this session. John, I just really value and appreciate so much the words you've shared with us today. I know that everybody listening in, either live on the replays, will probably be listening to this a number of times. You can find out so much more about John Gray. John, can you just give us a couple of links that people can check out the amazing work you're doing, and if they want to engage in some of the work that you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, it's one link. It's Mars Venus, one word, marsvenus.com. And that's my website. And if you forget that, if you put my name, John Gray, in a Google search, that will always come up first is my website. And there's a lot of really great video blogs on health and all health conditions, because my interest in health really emerged at a higher level when 15 years ago I had Parkinson's, and I found out natural solutions for that. And those same natural solutions are basically how to create optimal health. And particularly they work with children who have ADHD type symptoms, learning difficulties, autistic spectrum. Those kind of answers are there. And I speak at those conferences, get great results helping people when their only alternatives are these drugs, which are not really helpful. I even show how they're not helpful. So that's one aspect. You can go to the website and get a free download of my book, Staying Focused in a Hyper World, Natural Solutions for ADHD, memory, and brain performance. So it kind of covers the whole spectrum of brain performance. Children, it's often diagnosed as ADHD type issues, learning difficulties, comprehension, memory, and later in life, it's all about brain performance, so we can keep it all going. So that book is there. People can access some of that information free at marsvenus.com. But particularly, the best part of my website are all the blogs that come out every week very diligently, as my daughter Lauren, who's now 30, has amazing blogs on relationship skills. I mean, she has it down. If you think I'm clear, she's really clear. And we spend hours, maybe 20 hours a week for the last 5 years, where I help edit her blogs.
Wow.
She's a better writer than I am, and a critical listener. So I have to prove things to her, but she honors my experience. So we sort of work together. So I see her blogs as sort of a step beyond what I've done in terms of the feminine perspective, teaching the Mars Venus material. One thing for the guys is one series of her blogs is called Winning Moves, like you won the contest, Winning Moves. And that's the things her boyfriend, they've been living together 5 years. They'll be getting married when they're financially self-sufficient. They're waiting for that to happen. They're about there. But she describes the things he does. Now, I read that and it inspires me to be a better husband to my wife, because the winning moves. Oh, I forgot that one. I forgot that. Oh, I could do that. And you can see the little things that make a big difference. And then she also helps to clarify women to understand guys. When you have that understanding, the world is more peaceful and you feel more confident you can get what you need.
John, thank you so much for sharing that. And I encourage everybody listening to this live or replays, please go and check out more of John's work, marsvenus.com. John, so much gratitude and for the time and for your information you brought to us today. The aim and intention of this summit is about personalized health. And I'm really hoping that you guys get so many different takeaways from this in relationships and how you can start to approach your partner from a different perspective, start to understand more about how you can love yourself and be comfortable with yourself, and have two relationships that are coexisting in a very beautiful partnership way. So John, thank you so much again. Thank you so much for the listeners for being here, for giving up your time and investing that into your own health and happiness. Please go ahead and follow the Facebook page where you have all the updates and bonuses and gifts and speaker schedules. And if you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, you get all these videos and access to every video on the summit for free. So please make sure you do that. Share this with your family and friends. This is 100% free. This is information from amazing experts like John, purely for your health and happiness. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, John. Look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Thank you very much.